Hello, I'm Dana Wilson, the composer of the Concerto for Drum Set and Wind Ensemble that's being featured in this video. And I was on the faculty at Ithaca College in the School of Music for 38 years. My roots are as a jazz pianist and also as a classically trained pianist and composer eventually. But I always lived in both worlds pretty comfortably. And improvisation originally was an important part of the classical world, but it has diminished in the past couple centuries. But it maintained itself, of course, in jazz.
This piece came about fairly naturally. Dana reached out and said that he'd like to write this piece for me, and I jumped at the opportunity.
A concerto, by design, features a soloist with an ensemble in a large work of varying moods.
He often writes works for faculty members who are either at Ithaca College or at other institutions, teaching institutions, which gives the opportunity for professors to further their scholarship by premiering new works. And of course, they're of the utmost highest quality. And so it's really a dream come true if Dana Wilson approaches you and invites you to perform one of his premiere works.
I had written a jazz trumpet concerto and a jazz piano concerto, and they did rather well and continue to do rather well in the world. And some conductors got together and wanted me to write a drum set concerto. And I thought it was a great idea, but then COVID came along and the whole project evaporated. I kept thinking about drum set and how much I loved it and how much I loved Greg Evans playing. And Greg Evans had just gotten a full-time job here at Ithaca College, and I wanted to celebrate that in some way. And so I got together with him and said, "What do you think?" And he said, "Sure, let's do it." And so we contacted James Spinnazola, the conductor of the Wind Ensemble, and he said, "Yeah, let's do it." And so then I had to write it.
So it was a really pleasant surprise when Dana got in touch and said that he'd like us to premiere his new concerto.
Sure. The first time I met Dana, it was when I first came to Ithaca, so that would have been 2009. Before coming here, I was familiar with Dana's works, and so meeting Dana, it was really beautiful because he's such a sweet human being, also a brilliant musician, and the fact that he's so sweet makes him even more of a brilliant musician. It's this this great thing that he's got going on.
I've known Greg for a long time, since he was a student at Ithaca College. He's just an amazing human being, very soulful in his daily demeanor and certainly in his playing, and I was drawn to both. I've heard him a lot, particularly in a trio setting in town, and he plays so expressively and melodically, quote unquote, because it's a drum set, it's still very melodically. And I just have always been drawn to his ideas.
I've been able to play with Greg frequently. I'm a saxophonist, and so I engage with him in a jazz combo setting, and now to be able to just listen is really a lot of fun.
I've known James for a few years. He's been at Cornell now for I think 6 years, and he's played a couple of my pieces. And so I've gotten to know him somewhat peripherally. But what I really appreciate is this is his first year at Ithaca, and he took on a project. He didn't even know what the project was going to be yet. And that takes some guts when you're kind of not sure about how long your position's going to be here, and I really appreciate that.
Dana's music in general is rather eclectic, but particularly in his jazz-oriented concertos, he draws heavily upon two elements. The first is syncopation. In my left hand, I'm going to play the basic beat, and in my right hand, I'm going to play a melody from the piece that works against that. Blue notes, which came initially from African scales but are also heard in early American black music, such as the blues.
The drum set becomes a very special medium. It's tricky because obviously it doesn't have pitch in the conventional sense. And then it has these different built-in colors, say the cymbal color versus the drums color versus the bass drum color.
Drum set players best display their artistry through improvisation.
I love the element of improvisation within the context of everybody else playing what's written, because the improvisation really inspires the people that are playing the written notes, and the people playing the written framework provide a very sophisticated backdrop for the soloist. And I love that interaction, and hopefully that inspires the soloist to try things that he or she hasn't done before.
As opposed to the familiar do-re-mi scale that much classical music is based on, a scale can be formed that combines both the do-re-mi scale and some of those blue notes to form an unusual 8-note scale that Dana employs throughout this work. This is the basis for many of the melodic ideas in the piece, as contained in this trumpet and saxophone melody.
The slow movement was the trickiest part, because usually the drum set player is very energetic and wild in his or her playing, and that works well in fast sections. But in very slow, intimate sections, usually the drummer at best keeps a very gentle time, often with brushes, very subdued world that he or she creates. Here, of course, it's a concerto, so the person's featured. And so I try to find a place where the drummer could be expressive and still create energy through the drums. You'll notice in the recording that Greg starts out just playing the second movement, the slow movement, with his fingers. And he plays on the drums with his fingers as well as the cymbals to create a whole different inspiration for him, a different way to think about sound, and to create a different sound world for the beginning of that movement.
I'm really moved to hopefully help Dana's vision become realized. My favorite part also in putting together this piece was, seeing all of the students, different programs, different Ithaca community members, faculty and staff come together to make something bigger than ourselves.
I really like in the third movement when it sort of gets the funk feel. You get that sort of samba vibe, and there's also a couple really nice solos as well. I know Kurt has a nice trombone solo, and Megan with the trumpet solo. It's really just like, by the time the third movement comes around, it's kind of just like a jam session, at least in the low brass section.
One thing I've been grateful for at Ithaca College is both faculty and students who have really dug into my music and played it so beautifully and expressively and recorded it. And the students always show up totally prepared and ready to go and very professional in every regard. And so it's such a joy for me to be involved with them, again this time, but throughout my career.
I think the best word to describe what it feels like to play this piece is just excited. It's so much fun to play, and we all are genuinely having a really good time. And knowing that Dana Wilson wrote this piece specifically for our group and Greg Evans, and being able to perform that, it's just exciting.
I think every composer likes to think that he or she can move people. I don't know how my music does that technically or aesthetically, but I feel all I can do is if it moves me, that's the best I can do, and hopefully it'll move others to listen to it.